Oh, hello, all of my favorite peeps. This is Angel. I'm back. I was thinking this morning that I should probably make another video. And I have been planning this one out for a while now because, like a lot of people, I have tomatoes in my head right now. I just keep thinking about tomatoes. I have tomatoes in my house that are about 3 feet tall. I have one that's about 5 foot, getting close to 6 foot tall in my house. They need to go outside. And weather and circumstances and scheduling has not made that possible yet. And everybody keeps telling me, not yet, don't plant the tomatoes yet. And there's all different kinds of advice that I've heard. We are past our last frost date in this area. I really don't think we're going to have another frost, but everyone, keeps telling me that tomatoes shouldn't be planted till Mother's Day is one of the things I've heard. I've heard another one that tomatoes should be planted in the arm, which is a moon phase, and when I looked that up, it's May 22nd. And I don't think my tomatoes can last that long. So how I have been biding my time and patiently waiting for the opportunity to plant my tomatoes and get them outside into the garden is I have been researching the tomato plant. And I wanted to do another video, sort of like my basil video, where I kind of do a 4-part where I have some of the history and a little bit of myth and lore, and then the nutritional values, and also some uses. And so in doing research, I found so much interesting things about the history. The history was probably the most intriguing things that I found out about the tomato. And tomatoes are relatively new food for most of the world. They originated in South America, some believe in Peru. The Aztecs used them as early as 700 AD. And they didn't reach Europe or Spain or even North America until much later. And when they were first found and discovered, they believed them to be poisonous because they are part of the same family, the nightshade family, as deadly nightshade, mandrake, which are poisonous plants. So people were very leery of them and did not think that they were safe to consume. There was also some reports of, I believe in the 1500s, that they were consuming tomatoes, and while the poor people had no problems eating the tomatoes, the rich tend to get sick. And they believe that the reason why is because the poor were eating tomatoes off of wooden plates, while the rich were eating the tomatoes off of pewter plates. So the high acid in the tomatoes on the pewter plates was leaking iron, I believe it was, and making the rich sick from eating the tomatoes. There is a story from Salem, New Jersey in 1820, so like 200 years ago, not that long ago, of a gentleman. His name was Colonel Robert Gibbon Johnson. And he sat down on the steps of the courthouse in this big to-do, and he was going to eat a basket of tomatoes. He had a doctor there telling him that he was going to die a horrible death if he ate these tomatoes. There were women standing around watching. There was a band playing music, and it was a crowd of 2,000 people had gathered around him to watch him eat this basket of tomatoes. And the when he took the first bite out of the tomato, there was women that fainted, and it was a big spectacle. And he wound up eating this basket of tomatoes, and of course he did not die. And so that kind of proved to a lot of people that tomatoes were not poisonous, even though still they did not become widely popular in North America until around the Civil War time. And tomatoes are, when I think about tomatoes, I think about, like Shakespeare and plays and people having rotten tomatoes thrown at them, to boo them off of stage. And I did some research on that, and come to find out, tomatoes were not used in Shakespearean time to boo people off of stage. Even though they did use food, they tended to use rotten eggs or turnips, which I don't know about you, but I would prefer a rotten tomato over a rotten egg or turnips. I don't think either one of those would be very pleasant. But from some of the research that I did, there was a gentleman in New York, I believe, that he was the first one to be booed off of the stage with rotten tomatoes. And that is documented, and that was until 1883, and his name was John Ritchie. And they had thrown tomatoes and rotten eggs at him, and it said that he was struck in the eyes by a tomato, and as he dropped to the ground, rotten eggs fell onto him. It's a horrible way to get told it's time to get off the stage. There's just so much interesting things about tomatoes and their history, and the fact that they're a relatively new food to us. And when you think about, especially here in the United States, that tomatoes are a huge part of our diet. Two of our favorite condiments in America that we purchase the most of aren't made from tomatoes. That's ketchup and salsa. So to think that just 200 years ago, the tomato was non-existent really in most of the world's diets is just amazing to me. Now, in doing research on the myths and lore, I really couldn't find very much. And I think the reason why I couldn't find very much is because they're so new. There's not a lot of old wives' tales or anything about them. Now, I did find that something that said that leaving ripe tomatoes on the mantle of a new dwelling would ensure prosperity and good fortune in the home. And that's about it as far as the old wives' tales, and I found that very interesting, just the lack of myths and lore, other than the fact that people believed for so long that they were poisonous. Another really interesting fact about tomatoes is that tomatoes, we know are a fruit by botanist standards. They hold the seeds. They are the fruit of the plant. And that is the part of the plant that we tend to consume. Tomatoes were widely considered a fruit and not even thought of as a vegetable until the U.S. Supreme Court on March 3rd, 1883 deemed them a vegetable to make them more taxable, to increase profits off of the tomatoes. And that is very interesting. I didn't ever realize that the U.S. Supreme Court got involved in things like that. It was really neat to learn that bit of history. A funny thing, I was reading quotes about tomatoes last night, and I found this really cute one here. It says, "Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. philosophy is wondering if that means ketchup is a smoothie. And I just thought that was a really neat little quote to share with you guys. Now, moving on to the nutritional value of tomatoes. Tomatoes have lycopene in them, which is a substance found that the human body absorbs lycopene more efficiently from processed tomatoes than from raw tomatoes. So I've always been under the understanding that you get more of a nutritional value from your fruits and vegetables when you eat them raw, and whenever you tend to process them or cook them, that you are not getting as high of a level of nutrients from them as you would eating them raw. And the tomatoes proves that as not a mainstream whole. It's different because you absorb more of the nutritional value from processed tomatoes than you do from eating tomatoes raw. Tomatoes have the lycopene may reduce risks of many forms of cancer and diabetes and even heart disease. And tomatoes are a source folate, vitamin B9 that is important for pregnant women. A small raw tomato, about 100 grams, is 18 calories, 0.9 grams of protein, 3.9 grams of carbs, 2.6 grams of sugar, 1.2 grams of fiber, 0.2 grams of fat, and 95% water. Now, this is going to vary drastically whenever you look at the different colors of tomatoes. When I was doing the research on the nutrition, that was another very interesting thing, because the different colors of tomatoes change the nutrition that is inside those tomatoes. Where red tomato is going to be higher in fiber, and a yellow tomato is going to have higher amounts of iron. And then black tomatoes have a much higher anthocyanin content, which is the nutrient that's found in like blueberries and blackberries. So that was very interesting to me, and that makes me very happy that in my tomato planning my tomato garden, I picked all different colors, all different sizes of the tomatoes, because I love the different flavors that you get from that. I didn't realize that in doing that I was also broadening the amount of nutrition that I would be getting from the tomatoes that I would be eating. And tomatoes, also protect against sunburn. When you consume them, they help you with your skin, and it has been said that you can even on a sunburn rub a slice of tomato on there to help soothe it. It is beta carotene that is converted into vitamin A in your body. Naringin, Naringin, is found in tomato skins and is a flavonoid that has been shown to decrease inflammation. Tomatoes are just a really well-rounded staple for our diet, which is amazing to me that it took so long for them to become popular. Some of the benefits to your health that you can get from eating tomatoes is it can help with macular degeneration, so it's good for your eyes. It can help heal or delay cataracts. It can help prevent cancer, heart disease. It can help stabilize blood pressure, and it's good for your blood. It's good for your bones and strengthening your bones. neuropathy damage to hands and feet. It's good for replenishing loss of minerals and sodium. It protects against the sun's UV rays, protects cells that fight against aging and improves skin health, protects from harmful free radicals. Now, this is the part that I was a little overwhelmed with, is the tomato uses. Tomatoes can be used in sauces. You can fry tomatoes, you can stuff tomatoes, you can juice tomatoes, you can eat tomatoes fresh, you can put them in salsa, you can bake tomatoes, you can roast tomatoes, you can sun-dry tomatoes, you can dehydrate tomatoes, you can can tomatoes. Canned tomatoes. You can pickle tomatoes. You can put tomatoes in a relish. You can use them as a skin cleanser. You can use them for sunburn relief. You can make tomato soup. You can grill tomatoes as a seasoning. You can use tomatoes. You can make a tomato jam. You can make a tomato chutney. You can use them in cocktails such as a Bloody Mary. You can use tomatoes as a garnish, and you can marinate tomatoes. And you can also use tomatoes to help get rid of a skunk smell on your dog if they find a skunk. Tomatoes have so many uses, I can't even get into that. So what I'm going to invite everybody to do is share your favorite tomato recipe. What do you like to do with tomatoes? Tell me a little bit about your love for tomatoes, or tell me about your dislike for tomatoes. But I just wanted to thank you all for watching my video. This is Schmitz's Riches, and we also are on Facebook and YouTube, so whichever one you're watching us on, please feel free to go to the other one. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, give me a thumbs up if you like. I'm still really new at this and trying to learn how to do all of this technical stuff, but I'm having fun in the process. And I just hope everybody has a wonderful day, and I love your guts, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.